So I've mentioned before on my channel that I believe that the ultimate outcome of the COVID vaccinations is going to be some kind of prion disease or CJD outbreak. Now, when this occurs, they're most definitely going to have a narrative in place to feed to the public to basically be able to convince people that what is occurring is a result of nature, mutations and whatnot. Essentially everything they were talking about with Disease X. I don't know if you guys remember that pep talk they had, but essentially the idea was that there was going to be this interspecies jump of a very deadly pathogen that would wipe out a lot of people. Now, about the only thing I can see on the horizon that fits the bill of what they were talking about is what's currently going on with zombie deer disease or chronic wasting disease. If you guys don't know what that is, essentially it's mad cow disease on steroids, and it's spreading in the deer population like wildfire. In fact, they found their first case in Yellowstone, and it's sparked up renewed concerns that this disease is going to jump the species barrier and start killing humans. Scientists warn zombie deer disease could spread to humans as cases surge across the United States. Scientists warn that zombie deer disease could spread to humans after hundreds of animals were infected with the illness in the United States over the last year. Chronic wasting disease, which leaves the animals drooling, lethargic, stumbling, and with a blank stare, has been found in 800 samples of deer, elk, and moose across Wyoming. But experts warned the disease was a slow-moving disaster and urged governments to prepare for the possibility of it spreading to humans. The mad cow disease outbreak in Britain provided an example of how overnight things can get crazy when a spillover event happens from, say, livestock to people, CWD researcher Dr. Corey Anderson told The Guardian. We're talking about the potential of something similar occurring. No one is saying that it's definitely going to happen, but it's important for people to be prepared. In the UK, 4.4 million cattle were slaughtered after mad cow disease spread in the 1980s and 1990s due to bovine being fed infected meat and bone meal. The disease, which is usually fatal for cattle, infects the central nervous system and leaves the animals with aggressive symptoms and a lack of coordination. Since 1995, 178 human deaths have been attributed to the human variant. Since 2017, 7,000 to 15,000 CWD-infected animals a year were being consumed by humans, according to the Alliance for Public Wildlife. The figure was expected to rise by 20% annually. In Wisconsin, thousands of people have probably eaten meat from infected deer, Dr. Anderson said. CWD is extremely hard to eradicate once an environment is infected. It can persist for years in dirt or on surfaces, and scientists report it is resistant to disinfectants, formaldehyde, radiation, and incineration of 600 Celsius or 1100 Fahrenheit. It comes after a U.S. biotech company, Ginkgo Bioworks, warned illnesses transmitted from animals to humans could kill 12 times as many people in 2050 as they did in 2020. The company said epidemics caused by zoonotic diseases, known as spillovers, could be more frequent in the future due to climate change and deforestation. It sounds like a bunch of BS there. Between 1963 and 2019, epidemics increased by almost 5% every year, with deaths up by 9%, according to the group's research. If these annual rates of increase continue, we would expect the analyzed pathogens to cause 4 times the number of spillover events and 12 times the number of deaths in 2050 than in 2020, it warned. And that's the end of the article. So I just want to make it clear that I'm not saying that I necessarily believe all the science stuff on this particular subject, so I don't want people to jump to conclusions and start coming up with these responses and stuff. All I'm doing is trying to shine the light and make the noise on an issue. I keep seeing a repeated pattern here, and it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that they're preparing for there to be a significant increase in people with severe neurological problems related to this particular class of diseases. And I don't think they would be going through all this effort, year after year to try to slowly build this narrative if this wasn't going to actually materialize at some point. I also want to make it clear that I'm not trying to fearmonger with this. I know that there's a lot of that goes on within the truth movement. And the last thing I want to do is be responsible for fear-mongering unnecessarily and stuff like that. I'm just trying to share the information with you folks. You can choose to believe it or not. I'm not here to win likes or subscriptions or I don't want your donations. I don't want anything like that. I'm just here to try to chime in whenever I can. And that's the truth on that. Anyways, guys.
The threat of another variant emerging that causes new surges of disease and death remains. When the next pandemic comes knocking, and it will, we must be ready to answer decisively, collectively, and equitably. It's therefore with great hope that I declare COVID-19 over as a global health emergency. The threat of another pathogen emerging with even deadlier potential remains. And pandemics are far from the only threat we face. In a world of overlapping and converging crises, an effective architecture for health emergency preparedness and response must address emergencies of all kinds.